Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that kind introduction. I always remember you, JP, as I am your senior by 6 weeks. And I'll never forget that. Such a big project as NAP5, looking at the incidence of AAGA, needs a denominator. And that is what I'm going to present to you today. NAP4 produced some fine data about the number of general anaesthetics, and only general anaesthetics, and some details about airway management. And that is the number published from the NAP4 estimate, which is very helpful. But it doesn't have data about things that are relevant to NAP5. And so another project was necessary. I give full credit to Wouter, who's in the audience, who's going to present the some of whose work. The Irish audit will be presented later, but it is largely down to Wouter for paving the way for this difficult idea of how to get maximum data with minimum effort. The Irish questions went before us. We learnt from that and adapted. And I also want to thank James Palmer, who did the lion's share in the creation of this formidable piece of work. Trying to get 30 questions into one side of A4 that is clear and concise and that you'll all understand. You've got to fill it in and you can do it easily. That is what we intended. We wanted to get every single anaesthetic over a whole year represented. Of course, that's a silly idea and couldn't be done over a whole year. Not a month either. Probably not a week. That would be too burdensome to get one of these pieces of paper filled in for every anaesthetic every week. So we debated about how we should do it. And it was decided that we would take 2 consecutive days. We'd get each of the local coordinators and randomise them to 2 consecutive days. And from those days, we would be able to use a multiplication factor to scale it up to an annual estimate. So we we asked local coordinators to distribute the forms so that only NHS patients in NHS hospitals would be recorded about anything where an anaesthetist was involved in a procedure of any kind, really. And it could be in intensive care, could be in an emergency department, could be in theatre. And with that data, we would be able to generate a big data set. Now, let me just go back a moment. This rather formidable picture on my right here, I've blown that up so that you can just see the top left hand of the questions. Now, this will be familiar to you, but I think it's helpful to look at. Is that the point? Oh, yes. This first question, you can see that we've always included other and unknown here. So, you know, there are going to be times when you don't know. So that's important. And then this, probably our most important question that we put in late in the day, actually, but we wanted to be clear about what kind of conscious level the patient was supposed to be submitted to. The calculations, which are pretty boring, but because the scaling factor was taken from 3 components, obviously easy from 2 days to a week, a number of working weeks, taking into account bank holidays and other odd days, and the return rate from each of the LCs. Now, every LC took part. Some LCs didn't able to get all of their patients represented, and this is the median return rate for all the return rates from the LCs. So using those, the multiplication factor of 180 or so was used to calculate an annual estimate of the caseload. And because that's 180, we can say, well, we're going to round them off to 100. And therefore, when you're looking at annual caseload, you can see that if there are 200 cases, well, that equates to 1 form. Okay, that's important. All calculations were made using an Excel spreadsheet. This is why I'm presenting it to you, because I put my hand up to say that I could use an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, I got laughs at the time too, but I had the last laugh because once I learned how to use the pivot table, all the things that I'm going to show you in a few minutes were done pretty much within a few minutes. That's probably one of the learning points of my talk. If you want to manage data, learn how to use the pivot table. Terrific thing. Okay, so the results. Out of 20,000 forms, this is the caseload. There were some unanswered questions, and they varied according to the question. Overall, 4% of the responses filled in other or unknown, and therefore were uninterpretable. 2 questions gave people a lot of difficulty. Which neuromuscular blocker was used? You'd think that would be easy, but it wasn't. And the main depth of monitor use. Well, these questions were perhaps later on, and perhaps people got tired, but that was difficult for some people. I should have said, I apologise to the people right in the front row, because some of my slides, the detail is at the bottom, and you may not be able to see it, and if you want to stand up, that's okay by me. The main procedure, you think this is quite a complicated graph, but really, honestly, this took me a few minutes to create. I've got the annual caseload up against the y-axis and all the main procedures here, and I divided them into GA and all the other types of care not involving unconsciousness. You can see that orthopedics, general surgery and gynecology have the lion's share of the caseload, and obstetrics, a big caseload, but only a very small amount, about 10% of general anaesthesia. And this is the range of cases that go on. This is the nicest slide. I took greatest pleasure out of creating this. These are the age groups here, and you can see the annual caseload according to age group. Here are the people in the prime of their life. Here's Tim down here, and here are the gender, or rather sex, because I think the sex is what we use. And you can see that in the middle are lots of ladies having various procedures, and more boys having procedures in children. There are about 500,000 children under the age of 16 being managed by an anaesthetist in the NHS. At the admission type, you can see that separating them into elective cases, the vast majority, it's at 75% are elective. We've still got a heavy load though. 23% could be classified as emergency cases. At the time of day, I think, and I'm here, I make no apologies for drifting slightly away from the point of AAGA, although it's still relevant to AAGA, about who does what where, with the seniority of anaesthetists. So this is where this is going. Here I've created 5 graphs according to the ASA grade about when these ASA patients were done. This is the percentage within that ASA category. So you can see here that for ASA 1s, almost everybody's done during the day, some at night, and that is by night, I think I mean from, if I get this right, from 6 till, from midnight to 8 o'clock. That is from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 at night, and that is from 6 till midnight. I think that's how it pans out, and you can see that as the ASA grade increases, more of the ASA patients are being done outside the routine hours. I can put numbers on that, although I think it clutters the graph a little, but you can see here that ASA 5 patients, about 60% of them are done during the day, the remainder out of hours. And if you look at the urgency category, you can see that the elective, done during the day, and the immediate, well, they just have to be done at other times of the day as well. Now, what about the day of the week? This reminds us that we're looking at 2-day blocks. So I can't tell you for certain how many were done on a Saturday or a Sunday. The data has a fault in that. But this is the caseload. You can see, according to ASA grade, that 1 to 3 that drops off at weekends. But 4 and 5s, well, this is continuous throughout the week. And according to urgency, two y-axes here, the bigger one on the right, the dotted line of the elective cases, which drops down at the weekend, and those, the others, are pretty, particularly the urgent and the emergency ones, are pretty steady throughout the week. The seniority of anaesthetists now, this composite graph shows, according to the ASA grade, forgive me those who are at the front can't see that the ASA grades 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, this is their annual caseload, and these are the proportion within that ASA category managed by these various people. And irrespective of the ASA grade, the consultants and other grade, so fully trained people, are playing a big role. Over 75% of all patients, whatever category, are managed by fully trained anaesthetists. If you look at the NC-POD category then, there's a slightly different story in that the immediate cases, which are only a small proportion of total cases, trainees are taking a bigger role in that. And extending that to caesarean sections, the category 1, which is the most urgent of the caesarean sections, trainees are taking quite an important role in that process. Now, I thought it'd be a good idea to just focus on the ASA 4 and 5s, according to day of the week, which you can't see, those who are at the front, but Monday, Tuesday, and Sunday, Monday here. You can see that at the weekend, the number of ASA 4 and 5 cases are less, but they're still going on. This is the proportion managed by consultants at that time. You can see that at the weekend, there is a dip there. Okay, the intended level of consciousness then. So of the 3.5 million cases, let's say 77% are done under anaesthesia, but a large proportion, important proportion of work of anaesthetists takes place under sedation or awake. This graph, which I'm also pleased about, also took a few minutes and shows, according to the age range, the conscious level that the anaesthetist intended. If you're a baby, sedation was hardly used. Here, probably these are, well, I can tell you they are women having epidurals for labour or caesarean sections. And here, these are elderly people having eye operations or orthopaedic operations. So this gives a nice spread of our intended consciousness according to age. These are only sedation cases. So of all the patients who had sedation, whatever the procedure, these are the procedure. This is the percentage of patients who had that particular procedure. So not 50% of orthopaedics was done under sedation. I mean that of all sedation, you know, if you took all the sedation cases and put them in a room, 50% of them would have had an orthopaedic or trauma procedure. The induction agent, this is for anaesthesia alone now, is informative, I think. It shows that for children, the inhalational induction is commonplace, rare for other groups. Thiopentone is hardly used at all, except for caesarean sections. And likewise, propofol, a widely used drug, is hardly ever used in caesarean sections. The rapid sequenced induction is almost essential in caesarean sections and hardly ever used in children. The maintenance agent, the sevoflurane is by far the biggest drug. Propofol hardly used at all in caesarean sections. Desflurane becomes taking a small role as well. Nitrous oxide, if you think that's important, well, it is if you're having a caesarean section, but overall less so. Perhaps in children it may have been used for induction, in the induction only. We don't know that, but that's a possibility. I hope you forgive me for rattling through this, but I have left out some of the data. I'm trying to present to you what I think is the most interesting, helpful data to give you. These, I hate tables, but this really shows that the most common airway is going to be either a subglottic airway or a tracheal tube. No, so we got 45% of all GA cases had a tracheal tube, okay? And almost everybody has these removed awake, which of course is relevant to the main topic today. The use of neuromuscular blockers, according to age, children, adults, elderly, caesarean sections, and all here, either induction or maintenance. You can see just about every caesarean section will have one, but few children. This is percentage within these categories here, and you can see that succinylcholine is hardly used at all, except in caesarean sections. The use of depth of anaesthesia monitors, excuse me, is uncommon. A complicated slide. Perhaps you should just look at this. This is the combination of these three. In children, it's hardly used at all. Adults, yes, 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 all ages. This is the percentage of all adults, all patients who have a thing. And isolated forearm technique is very rare indeed. But suppose we separate these according to the type of drugs that you use. And this is what we've done here. With a volatile agent, if you don't use a muscle relaxant, only 1% of patients are monitored. If you do have a muscle relaxant, this goes up. With using TIVA, where obviously you don't have a monitor of the amount of drug that you're using, then this goes up. If you don't have a neuromuscular blocker, it's higher. But the highest of all is if you're using TIVA and neuromuscular blocker. 23% of patients are monitored. The learning points which I offer, and I think this is, well, I've copied it out of the report, so I'm not going to deny this. This, I think, is a pretty comprehensive national picture of anaesthesia practice to date. We're giving approximately 2.8 million anaesthetics a year. 25% of your work is with not having a general anaesthetic. There are some challenges. It's good that most patients are managed by consultants, irrespective of ASA, but consultants were present in only 57% of urgent and immediate cases, only a quarter of category 1 and 2 caesarean sections, and if you look at ASA 4 and 5 cases, if it's outside routine hours, then only 50% compared with 80% are managed by consultants, and there's a problem at weekends as well. For the future, this project will supply data, I hope, which is of benefit to any large projects in the future, and we think that if any major changes are proposed on the basis of this, that and the other, then a project such as this should be undertaken again to see its effect, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is it.